Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to what is now the final round here for the World Tour Season 2. Here at a very chaotic looking Bathurst. Definitely a track that requires skill. And looking at how many cars there are on track, I feel like this could only go one way. And I feel like you all know what way that is going to be, as I have been watching Dean stream in the background as well. And all I heard was crunching. So, again, with the yellow flags as well, it's not filling me with confidence. To be honest, but we do actually see the times are actually already quite quick. I did see, I believe it was a 2-minute flat was the fastest time we saw overall, and I think that was by Vink, so that is once again a bit of competition between two drivers, Zonobovic and Vink. I believe they were battling at Imola as well last week, but I think it was all down to pit strategy, which did cause Zonobovic to regain the lead throughout the last few laps of the race. But now James Terry coming in P1 in that Delta Hunters livery with a 202.120, which is the fastest lap time so far. We do see it's only the AMs out on track. It is split qualifying as usual. It does seem it is probably a more pro and silver dominant race here today, and that is going to be because of the new Thursday league that has started up, the rookie league, which has definitely eliminated a few of the drivers from the main league, which is the World Tour league. But that is obviously sometimes a good thing because it's less chaotic and it can be less dangerous on track, but it does bring grid sizes down ever so slightly, but it hasn't actually affected it too bad coming into the finale. So do you now see this is going to be James going through what is going to be now McPhellamy Park, one of my favorite corners on the entire track. It can be very sketchy if you get it wrong, especially with how little runoff area there actually is that you can take without being dragged out onto the grass. He does go through the skyline now. This is going to be one of the harder parts, going through the dipper. Still now going to be a 10th.5 up on his pit lap time going into Forest Elbow. Very difficult corner of cambered while breaking downhill. You can see how much the actual tires are screeching going into the exit of Forest Elbow. It's just one of the corners that we will see a few crashes on, especially with the cars with the lower TC and ABS units. But I believe every car should be able to take it. I believe if we did see the Aston Martin V12, which I don't believe we have seen during this race. We have seen it previously during the World Tour Season 2. I believe he hasn't been able to participate in the rest of the races. The only car we do have is the Reiter, as Vil is back, as you can see, currently in P11, but hasn't set a lap time yet because he is one of those pro drivers. But obviously there's a bit of a change for Pro League Racing going into Season 3, and that's because they had to part ways with Sim Racing GP, as I have seen quite a few major communities doing recently, and they have made their move as well to SimGrid. All of the links posted above in the pinned comment, I guess you could call it, is directions to take you to both the SimGrid community and the Evolution races, or Evolution, it's one of the two, for Season 3, which I believe Greg told me starts in 3 weeks, so definitely not that long at all to be waiting for that. Definitely a shorter season to say the least. As well as that, Robert Jennings not the only car who is actually improving the tiny bit going into Murray's corner. Onto the pit straight, goes up. Isn't going to be a valid lap time though, but it is actually going to be a valid lap time, but he has only been able to decrease the lap time ever so slightly, as it does seem he is about a second or so off some of the faster drivers where he is usually at. We have seen him having quite promising pace throughout the entire of this season. To be honest, he's had some very good races, and unfortunately he's had some less fortunate races, so we say the least. We do see it is going to be the last 5 minutes, I believe, and then we will see the AMs going back into the pits, and we will see the pros and the silvers hopefully dominating the track and being able to take the lap times down into 2 minutes, as we've seen previously. Is once again James Terry still being on pole position, being able to decrease his lap time by only a tenth since we saw him last night with 202.012, increasing his gap between P1 and P2 up to just over 9/10 now as he goes through the skyline. Once again, this car is probably going to be one of the more strong cars, this Aston Martin V8, being a front engine car, as we do see now going through Forest Elbow, trying to get very close to the wall without hitting them. As you can see how close he gets to the exit wall there of the Bentley sponsored concrete barrier. It's now going to be him going through what I believe is Conrad straight into the chase. Isn't able to improve just yet. I'm not sure if my ACC race control is going to be bugged there, as we do see. Is that a false PLR account, or is that Greg's account? I think that might be Greg's account. Evening, Greg, if that's you. And then evening to Seb as well. Good to see you both in an extremely hot UK. So I'm losing weight while doing this commentary session. Not complaining. It is you. I see. Think I have changed everything. I haven't changed the description though, because I don't know, it didn't let me. So I can do that later if wanted. Itchy now actually improving, going into Conrad Straight as well. In E3 Racing Ferrari 296. The 296 being quite, I believe it's actually not the best car around here. That's why we don't see it dominating so much in the grid so far. The highest one being a P4. Could change though, as we do see now Itchy going through the chase, going into Murray's corner, the final corner known as the 90-degree corner. Very, very difficult corner as well. Braking quite late, but you don't want to brake too late because you can see how lethal that curb can be. Comes across the line there, only goes up one position at with 203.617. Conrad, you know what? Just for you, I'll call it Conrad Street for the entire stream. And Ryan Madsen as well. Going into the final corner. Murray's, his 4 attempts leaps up again into P4, taking the Ferrari 296 out of the top 4, nearly knocking him out of the top 5 there. Does seem, again, there is some sort of correlation between the front engine cars being able to dominate this race so far. We do see that Honda is seeming to be struggling a tiny bit. He does come into the pits there, as we do see it's not too much time left of qualifying for the amateurs. We do see it is going to be Byrne going into, again, Conrad Straight into the chase. Is actually up quite a bit of time, but he has quite a lot of time to unfortunately have to gain up with only 2 minutes left to go. It might actually be a blessing though, starting from the back, thinking of it, because of how chaotic I believe this race start is going to be. And I am going to apologize in advance. It seems that I think I said this last week actually, there has been an API change in ACC race control going to ACC, so I don't actually see any of the yellow flags coming up anymore, so I kind of have to guess who's gone off. Luckily I know pretty much all of the car liveries now, so it should be a bit easier, but that is just something to make in mind. But I believe we will see quite a few incidents, so I'm not sure how many we'll be able to cover. Robert Jennings going up to P6 then, almost knocking out Colombo out of the top 5 as well. We can see practically the entire of the top 5 are those front engine cars. 1 minute 52 seconds left. I'm going to be surprised if Robert Jennings will have another lap. If he does have another lap, he will be finishing with probably about 1 second left to go to do his final lap, but I believe this might be his final lap. He is pushing, though. He is 2 temps up so far, so he is at risk of losing Colombo's position into P6s. But do you see that is going to be Itri actually taking up into top 4, trying to make some sort of redemption there for the rear engine cars such as the Ferrari 296. You can see how bumpy the mountain straight actually is, and how much elevation change there actually is as well. This is the only street circuit in the ACC game, and I believe it's the only one we will get, as we have ACE coming out, or ACE as I like to call it, which I found really cool, coming out in, I believe it's December, or it could be November. It's around something like that time, and I'm actually kind of shocked on how little what's it called, how little leaks there actually have been about that game. We haven't even heard any sort of signs of beta testing yet, which I am also quite shocked about, as I feel like it's going to be a very, very expensive year for me, because I've also just bought a new microphone, which has just costed me close to 500 quid, but that's hopefully something for the best, as well, of having to buy FN24. So I have just spent practically a house deposit on audio, so hopefully stuff should sound better for whenever, as well as Enrico Itri, the only one actually still improving, going into the Conrad straight. I need to actually stop saying Conrad now, because I've got other comms tomorrow at Bathurst, and I will actually start saying that. So I'm sorry, Greg, but it's for not being getting taking the piss out of next race. It's actually going to be a treat. Unfortunately, oversteering and having a bit of an understeer moment as get a bit of a replay on what happened there. Going through the chase, a very, very dodgy corner. Does seem, yeah, he just did what, if anyone of you watched the actual Bathurst 12 hours this year, I believe it was in February, I believe it was the last lap and where we saw, Angel, or, I forgot how to say his name now, unfortunately. I should know this, actually, I watched a lot of GT. But the Mercedes absolutely launching it up to try to take the lead of the race from, I think it was the Audi. I'm not sure what Audi it was, though. God, my memory is awful. But hopefully you can't hear my fan. If you can't hear my fan, I apologise, but it is about 40 degrees in my room now, so I'm not trying to die of sunstroke, heat stroke, sorry. Jeffrey Witter is well now on the number 14 Ferrari 2967 attempts up, and this best lap time is going to be able to actually potentially take P5, going through Murray's corner now. Loses a bit of time on exit there, but does go up to P6 provisionally, and that is actually going to be his sitting position in class, as we do now see the rest of the grid are out now. This is going to be the pros and the arms, not the pros and the arms, the pros and the silver, sorry. It's going to be Vink, who is looking to challenge Zanabovic once again. We do see in front of it the almighty Vil in the, I guess it's the Lamborghini Gallardo, but it's the Reuters Engineering. But it is going to be him starting his first qualifying lap at the front of the grid, so having clean air there, that's probably going to be a blessing more than anything. So he goes through Murray's corner, already seems to have a bit of a dodgy moment going onto the curb there. This is one thing I believe Vil is going to struggle with a lot going through Sector 2, and the Sector 3 complex is definitely going to be bottoming out. He has the lowest ride height of cars, along with obviously the Ferrari as well, but that is going to, oh, we do see that is a V12, so I was mentioning a V12 earlier. That is a V12. Oh, happy noises. But it does seem as well between the Ferrari 296 and Vil's Reuters Engineering, you can just see going through the curbs there, you can actually see some sparks flying off his car, and that's him bottoming it out. So already doing that through into Forest Straight is going to be something that isn't great, as we can see him now starting the climb going through now, I believe it's Ride Park, the cutting, and then Ride Park into McPhallamy Park. See how much, yeah, there you go, you can see that's the effects of bottoming it out, and he has just had that overseer moment, sorry, of losing control of his car going through McPhallamy Park. We get replay on it, and this is something he will definitely be suffering with. As you can see, that is when, yeah, that's unfortunate there, just seems the decompression of the car just unfortunately unsettling his car, but he's going to go back out. We do see Zanabovic as well there. He is going to be on for his first timed lap as well. We will see some of the cars now getting ready to set their first base time laps. No one has done it yet, as we do see going, that is going to be McPhallamy Park there. That's going to be Blackick, unfortunately just hitting the wall there, and that is going to be him having invalidated lap time, but still 16 minutes left to go, so still plenty of time to actually get lap time and good end. But going further down is where Zorkick now going onto the Conrad straight. That's a bit of a slipstream assist there from the only Lamborghini of Propeller. He was quite strong at the start of this, or is it? No, that is going to be Propeller, I believe. Had quite a strong start to the season, but I'm not really sure what happened, but unless it was an anomalous race, but I'm sure it's just as good. Now we do see Fink already setting the fastest lap time and already gapping the field by just under 5.5 tenths, 4.5 tenths, sorry. That's going to be Vink with a 2 minutes .607, getting very, very close to the cusp of the 59s, and I believe Zanabovic is capable of doing the 59s. I have seen him do it before, I believe, in the LFM Pro Series, because he is a fast driver. Robert Alavi as well in the Ferrari 296, currently in P2 with that 201.055. Do you see that is going to be quite difficult corner to go through? That is going to be the cutting being the corner that has probably the most amount of the pressure for the drivers is having to try to take straight there and trying to take that flat as well. Going into Reed Park is actually one of the most difficult corners, especially with tyre wear, and that's something the cars will have to take into consideration. Is trying to keep that flat. You have to take the identical line if you want to even have a remote chance of taking it flat throughout the race. With aero damage that I bet quite a few people will receive there, I think goes very, very close to the wall there, going through Forest Elbow. But the amount of aero damage that a few of these cars will receive, I believe it's not going to be flat for some of these cars. And I believe Ville and the Aston Martin V12, and I'm not sure who that actually is, will struggle, and it is going to be Adam Long in that livery day, will actually struggle with it because of their, well, I guess their cars not really having the developed aero packages that now we do see the next gen Evo cars has, because now I believe the Aston Martin V12 is 11 years old. So do with that what you will, I guess, compared to the younger car, which is the V8, and I believe the V8's still 6 years old, so it's still relatively old car, but it's starting to make its appearance back, obviously, with the new ACC fixed BOP that has been put in place, and obviously the 1.10 package being able to stabilize the field as well, as we do have the appearance of the Mustang as well. Greg Ellis in the PLR Esports 4296, coming in P7, that in the lovely livery it actually is. I do actually really like that livery. Going through the final corner of Murray's, goes up into P3 there, so a huge improvement there with a 211.107, but shortly stolen there by Victor, who goes up to P2 in that McLaren 720S Evo, showing that the rear-engine cars can actually have some sort of potential at this track here. Ivo Zorkic as well, now going through the cutting, takes it quite nice. You can hear, if you listen carefully, the skirting of the tyres now. Going into Reed Park, it's going to be quite a difficult corner. He gets quite close to it, but it's not going to be close enough to actually have any sort of danger. There, now going through McPhillamy Park. Very, very difficult corner complex, but it's more a relaxing part before going down into Skyline and the dip. Very sudden elevation change going into dip. You can see taking all of the inside line there to try get all of the car to rotate as well, with the assist of gravity, going into Forest Elbow as well. Now again, the difficult corner with the downhill braking and the off camber can definitely cause mistakes during the race with a more under series setup, but it's all about balancing the setup as well, because you can sacrifice one corner to not sacrifice the entire of the corners, because it's definitely going to be a more under series setup that is going to be needed to actually try and survive this race, because having that more oversteery setup going into the complexes of, let's say, the cutting and McPhillamy Park, and especially the Skyline as well, is going to require a more stable setup compared to a more, let's say, oversteery setup. So that is just one thing to take in consideration for it. So it's now Zorkic going across the line. He's going to place himself up to P3 provisionally with a 2-minute.890, as well as we do see Tom Week in the OnlyFans livery for I296 in P11. Goes across the line, but isn't going to be able to improve. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem his time was going to be valid, even though it does seem it was valid, but I assume the gap between P10 and 11 was quite significant. As well as that, it's going to be Meguro. Oh my god, that was the first mistake of the day so far for him. Just going into what is going to be Quarry Bend, just having a bit of an incident going into the cutting as well. Seems to understeer, and that's the risk of the cutting, is having to try take the first section of it flat and then getting on the brake. It kind of defeats the object of straight line braking, but you have to straight line brake as much as possible. And you do see this as well at Daytona, with the Daytona 24 having, oh my days, that was Blackett getting extremely close to the wall. But as I say, with the Daytona 24 hours having turn 1, especially in the LMDH car classes, having no ABS can be a bit more difficult. Not being able to have an effective braking strategy going into it. You can actually straight line brake a tiny bit, but then you have to try and improvise with it, going for an outsider line, but still being able to try and cut into the inside line. But that is definitely for people who play iRacing, will understand that, or any game that contains Daytona. I'm actually quite shocked that they didn't include Daytona in this, but then again, it's not really a Intercontinental or in America's trackers, that's going to be Blackick. Hitting the wall about 15 times, unfortunately, going through the entire of the lap there, but that's going to be his lap ruined. And I believe that's going to be a hint of what the entire race could be like. Greg Ellis as well going through the Conrad straight. He is going to be 2.5 tenths up so far, which can put himself up into P4 if he's able to keep the lap valid going into the chase. Now is the more calming part of the track, having to brake at the 100, well, I think it's the 150 board you brake at. I don't actually race it here as much as I used to, as it does seem. Palmick supporting Blackick, as well as, I'm sorry, I haven't been reading chat at all. Seba with the writer support as well. Now, as we do see, that's going to be Greg Ellis going into P5, so he wasn't able to commit the entire 2.5 tenths there, but he was still able to pull up into P5 provisionally so far with only 9 minutes left to go of qualifying. That's about, thinking of it, maybe 4 laps if you're already on track, and also the placement of your car on track also does determine how many laps you will have left. As we do see, this is going to be Jeremy Swanson going through Rose Corner with 9 tenths to his name. Is it going to be valid though? Yes, it is, going into P8 there with 201.230. It's quite significant increase in positions there, as we do see now. Robert Alevi going into Murray's as well, currently 4.5 tenths up, so this can actually potentially put him in pole position as he goes across into the start finish line, and that's going to put himself in pole position by 100, well, that's, yeah, 100th of a second there, and that is going to be him chasing, well, trying to track down the rest of the, well, there's no grid left to say, but trying to chip away at his lap time to try decrease the gap, but, well, you know, increase the gap between him and second place. My brain was starting to go there. As well as that, now at the moment in that Aston Martin V12 going through Forest Elbow, having a tiny bit of a moment on exit, but was able to save it from the wall. Still going to be 5 tenths up, and this is where the V12 will shine, going through Conrad Straight, having the highest top end speed compared to any of the cars on the grid here, and you can see how much he's actually gapping Blackick so far. Now going into the chase is going to be the complex, where it's going to require some good braking technique, especially in older car brakes like the V12. Now going into the Murrays, it's going to be 7 tenths off his best lap time, so this might be able to put him into P8 if he's lucky going through Murray. So he does get very, very wide there, but he has to try and commit there as he goes across the line to go into P10, so he does sacrifice, unfortunately, about a tenth there going towards the end of the Murrays there, but that is still going to be an improvement from south towards Robert Alavi. Once again, improvement, and this could be the potential of a 59 lap time, as he's currently 5 tenths up, or was 5 tenths up before going through Forest Elbow. But we do see he could be a tiny bit unlucky with traffic here, as that is, I believe, I'm not actually sure who that is. That's going to be another Ferrari 296. I think that's Zorikik. Unfortunately, Ivo, fortunately, I think getting in the way a tiny bit for him, and it does lose him a tiny bit more lap time, but goes through the chase, and the Murrays to again increase the gap between P1 and P2. As it stands, he goes across into the start finish straight, and that is going to not be enough to get a 2 minute, and it's going to be 2 minute 1.142, so not going to be enough for that 59 lap time that I was hoping for. So that's now Philip Propeller, who we haven't seen that much during qualifying so far, currently up about 3 tenths going through into McPhillamy Park. Now this is going to be the complex, where again I think this car might struggle a tiny bit, but probably can tolerate it a tiny bit more compared to especially the Writer Engineering. However, we do see the Writer currently in P17 for an update. As you can see on the leaderboard now, going through the dip. Does seem he's able to keep it very, very close there to the exit corner of the dip. To Forest Elbow. Now still actually going to be 6 tenths up, so he is looking to potentially go for about P3 or 4, so it's actually going to be a significant improvement if he's able to maintain this lap time. So we can see there's 2 generations of the Lamborghinis practically parallel with each other now. You see one in front, and that's going to be the All Saint Lamborghini Gallardo of the Writer Engineering car driven by Vil so far, and then we do see it's got to be his Philip Propeller as well in the Hurricane. It was brought out in 2022 or 2023, I believe, going through Murray's, both of them at the same time. Vil is going to improve a tiny bit. It's going to be him improving about 2 tenths, but we do see this could be a significant improvement here from Propeller, putting himself into P4. for himself going into the final 5 minutes left of qualifying, but reduced. It's going to be a bit of an incident there for Vil, getting a bit of an oversteer moment, and he does just abandon his lap time to potentially try to get some fresh tyres and lower fuel ready for his last attempts of setting a better qualifying time. Propeller once again chipping away of his lap time going into the Forest Straight, going into the Quarry Bend now, already just under a 10th up in his best lap time. Still quite a few corners left to go, and he's already... No, he seems to be sacrificing going through the cutting there. It's always good to sacrifice a tiny bit of lap time to actually keep a valid lap. So it's actually still going to be quite cold track, actually, with a 28-degree track temperature. Seba, sorry, saying V12 goes, but I believe, and this is my opinion, so... but I feel like quite a few people will agree, but the V12 is the best sounding car in the game. Throw me your opinions as well, as we're at it. What do you think is the best sounding car in the game? I'm going to personally say the V12. I feel like a few people will say the Jag as well. The Jag definitely sounds beautiful, and I will have to 100% agree with that, but I think the V12, it just sounds different. But again, the R8s as well. In real life, the two cars that does sound the most piercing from a GT3 and a GT4 perspective is going to be, for the GT3s, it's going to be the R8 Evo 2. They are absolutely piercing in real life, and then in GT4 it's going to be the Porsche Caymans. They are so loud, those two cars, and I'm lucky I'm going to actually get to go to Donington Park this weekend for, I believe it's British GT. I booked random tickets, so that is one thing to say the least. Hopefully this could be good. I haven't been to a British GT, well, just a GT race in general, since Spa 24, I believe. So yeah, maybe just under a year. I've got a post from Mike. Well, yeah, just under a year now. Merc and Lexus, I love that car to pieces. That's my favorite car that the Merc were on board with. So I'm assuming you might like the sound of the Aston Martin V8 as well, because they do share the same engine, I believe. Just different exhausts. Dean seems to be struggling going through the dip there. Not able to, well, continue his lap time, it seems. Having to correct his oversteer moment going through the dip, but now going through Forest Elbow. I don't think he's going to be able to recover this lap time. We'll still be able to have one more lap after this, because unfortunately he's on this unlucky part where he's only going to have one more lap left. So he's going to have to try and make it count. This could potentially be one of the only times Zonebovic has lost a qualifying session. Well, since Conrad left due to his seat braking and then going on holiday. Robert Arlavi is about already going on to Mountain Straight. 10th up to his name by just doing one corner of Hell's Corner into the Quarry Bend. So going to be up on this personal best lap time so far, which I am going to be quite surprised about, as I didn't know you could actually get any faster, but obviously we haven't seen that 59, so I'm assuming he's trying to get a 59, which he is on track to do so far, as he just completed cutting, going through McPhillamy Park now, as well as Reed Park and Solomon Park. I didn't know there's so many parks through here. There are quite a few, but Zonebovic actually now looking to take away Robert Arlevi's lap time of, well, on his pole position as well. He's currently 5 tenths up, going through the cutting, going through the 3 park sections now of Reed Park, Solomon Park, and McPhillamy Park. It's going to be close now between these two, as we can see Robert Arlevi's actually improving as well. Quite a stable improvement as well, 4 tenths to him, but we do see Zonebovic is currently at 5 tenths. It's all now down to seeing if they will encounter any traffic, and if they do, will they lose any time, as we do now see Dean going through the skyline, as that is going to be cut the wrong way, but luckily that is going to be, oh my days, I was really close between those two there, but that was going to be luckily wicked up, returning to garage very, very fast, so it isn't going to affect Dean very much, but it does seem he has lost quite a bit of lap time there for himself. However, we do see now this could be Robert Arlevi going through the chase for the final time, I believe, as well as Murray's Corner, and it does seem he loses a lot of time through Murray's Corner there, but can he still be on track for a 59? Goes across through Murray's Corner now, and it's going to be 2 minute point 0.85, unfortunately, there for him. Now he just needs to find just under a tenth to be able to. He has one more lap to be able to do so. Can he make it count? It does seem he makes a mistake going into turn one. Doesn't seem he's like he's taking the race in line so far. He is down 2 tenths as we do as well. See now Dean going through Murray's Park. Is he going to be able to take pole position? He has 4 tenths to his name so far. He goes across. Yes, he is going to be able to take pole away from Alavi provisionally with a 2 minutes .077, which is going to be the fastest lap time of today's qualifying session. It seems, as we don't see Alavi being able to improve so far as he goes through the cutting. 4 tenths down, unfortunately, as he abandons lap time, and that's going to be Dean being able to take another pole position for World Tour Season 2, as it doesn't seem anyone else is going to be able to improve apart from Anthony Fox, who does seem to currently be in P23, 3 tenths off the leader, the silver driver, going through Forest Elbow. Now, can he keep it? That Porsche going to be quite difficult, especially going through Forest Elbow, as we could see him having a bit of an understeer moment, going into the wall of the exit of Forest Elbow, going onto Conrad Straight. Is going to be able to maintain his lap time about 5 tenths going into the chase. Going through the chase now. Can he keep it? It's going to be quite a difficult time to keep. He will be able to go up a few positions to say the least. He might be able to go into top 20 to go through Murray, so he gets on the grass a tiny bit. That isn't going to be good for his lap time. Can he keep it? No, he can't. He spins, unfortunately, meters away from the start finish straight. And that's going to be the end of qualifying there for all of the drivers. And that is going to be qualifying as ignore as I apologize. I got home probably 5 or so minutes before I needed to go live. So you will see it's still Imola, but that's fine for now, as it's still some sort of a scene for you to watch. As it does seem it is going to be a start of a race, of a night race. Actually, that's not something we have seen very much. We have seen the time. I'm not sure if there's a time multiplier on. If anyone can actually correct me if there is one, that would be great. But in terms of what we see, it is going to be at least a start of a dark race. But we do, at one final time, we go for a grid walk for the final time of the season. We do lose a few drivers though, unfortunately. But we do see currently in P1 it's going to be Zondabovic, followed then by Robert Alavi taking P2. Barely, very unlucky there from him, followed by Vink. These three seem to be quite close with each other for the battle of pole position during qualifying, followed then by Philip Papella, Victor and Ivo rounding out into the top 6 in that Ferrari 296, as well as Greg Ellis on the right in the PLR Esports Ferrari 296, as well as Halavac in the 33, I believe it's the E3 Racing Ferrari 296, as well as Magiro in the Amazon Racing AMR V8, as well as then it's going to be Jeremy Swanson, who we haven't seen in a few rounds, so it's good to see him back for the finale in the AMG, the first of the two, I believe, AMGs we will see. I'm not sure if he's here for the first or the second round though. As we do see, it's going to be Blackett, and then it's going to be Adam Long in the amazing Aston Martin V12 Vantage, as well as then it's going to be Mayer and Stremvic. Oh, sorry, I said that completely wrong there. Stremvic in the 111 McLaren 720S Evil Legend, as well as James Terry. Then on the right in the, I believe he's taking in P15, they're taking the top spot for the AMS, followed then by Tom Week, Declan Brogan, as well in the silver class, as well as Villa in the Writer Engineering number 1 car, as well as Halavac, Madsen rounding out the top 20, then as well as Fertila, and then that's going to be Itri in the E3 Racing car as well, as we can see on the left, and then Anthony Fox, Jeffrey Witter and Robert Jennings rounding out the top 25. Only 5 cars left to go now, unfortunately. It's going to be Colombo and Revrock rounding up the top 27 in the BMW M4. So it's Osric Major in the McLaren 720S Evo, and that's going to be Mike Wooler in the Honda NSX, as well as Dabrowski, and then it's going to be Byrne rounding out the field here for tonight in P31. That is going to be our the end of the track walks of season 2. Definitely been a good season to say the least. I do think it has been one of my favourite seasons to commentate. I will be fully honest, it has been probably better than some of the leagues I have done. In fact, yeah, as I just said, it probably is been my favourite season to commentate on. There has been just so much going on with it. And I do thank the PLR admins and Greg Ellis as well for letting me on comms for season 2. Greatly appreciated, as this will be the finale round, as we will go into championship standings during probably around the mid-halfway mark of the race. We do see once again, we do have the mandatory pit stop, which is, I believe, as I completely forgot, I forgot if it might have changed, but it is going to be, yeah, it's going to be a night race, but it's going to be, yeah, as well as that, I believe. I'm not sure if someone can tell me as well what that is. I think it's a mandatory pit stop for tyres. Oh, wait, no, it's a mandatory pit stop for fuel, sorry. To get ready to go green here for the formation lap. It's one of the longer formation laps now. I believe it's about 4 minutes or so. It's a good opportunity for the drivers to actually be able to get their tyres heated. No signs of rain, it seems. It is a fully clear day, as it does seem that the weather chart board has changed a bit. It's down to 10 minutes now, which can be a bit cruel for the drivers. That means we have to see it refresh 6 times during the race. Actually, practically 7 times as well, if you think about obviously the positioning of the car and track, and obviously the formation lap as well. So that is all stuff to take into consideration. But I don't think there's going to be any sort of likelihood for it to rain in today's race. So we do go into the street circuit now, going into the forest, mountain straight, going into Quarry Bend. Dean taking pole position, followed by Olavi and then Vink running out the top 3 here. For the AMs, then in current standings of the race in silver, it's going to be Zorakik, Halavak and Megara running out the top 3 in silvers. Then in terms of AMs, it's going to be James Terry, then the big leap down into P19 of Halavak and Madsen running out the top 3 of the AM class here tonight. So there is definitely some sort of competitivity for all classes here in tonight's race, and we will obviously, as I mentioned earlier, go through standings towards the end of the race, and that is going to be where we do see who's determined champion. I believe Zunabovic has taken it because he has absolutely dominated the season since Siata left. So I believe Dean has won the championship overall, but I'm not sure in terms of silver and overall champions just yet. So we will once again go over that further into the race. Going through now Raid Park and Solomon Park. It's going to be something drivers are going to have to be a tiny bit more careful about, is their tyre usage. You don't have to pit for tyres in today's race. Obviously, again, it's quite a cold track as well, so tyre wear shouldn't be as bad as it usually is going to be, but it is going to be quite understeery, which can, well, wear tyres down. It's only an hour race though, so you shouldn't have to change tyres either way, unless you've had a humongous spin. Then you might have to try and justify going for new tyres, but it's all about if you actually need tyres in the end, because 60 minutes you can run, I believe you can run ACC tyres up to 3 hours. I could be wrong with that. I think I might be talking about brake pads. I believe that, yeah, it's tyres you can run quite a long time on. So I don't think tyres will be an issue. It's probably going to be a splash and dash technique for most of these drivers, unless they're using a strategy of 50-50 or starting a low fuel setup, which could actually be around Bathurst quite a good idea for the starting stint, and then taking the remainder of the fuel potentially maybe 25 minutes in or so. That isn't the worst of ideas, actually, thinking of it. But we do get ready to go green. We will see the cars formulate side by side, getting ready to go green. We'll probably see that going through the end of the Conrad Straight, probably going through Chase. So you see 31 cars going roaring into Hell's Corner for the first time into Mountain Straight, where we will start seeing potentially the first of many accidents. And actually Hell's Corner can be quite difficult to actually do an overtake on, and I believe quite a few drivers will try to do an overtake going onto that, as we will go into the helicopter cam. As I don't usually do this camera, but it's going to be able to, well, capture the entire of the grid going into the first corner. As we do see now, we go formulating side by side, getting ready to go green for the finale round here of the World Tour Season 2 Championship at PLR. Yeah, Dean's on above it, taking the lead of the race. Then it's going to be followed by Olavi and Vink going through Murray's corner for the first time. Green from any time from now. They cross the line. It will be green at the end of the pit straight.
Green light, green light.
Does seem now it's going to be green as we do see already. Dean's on above it, trying to go for the entire racing line as it takes it for its advantage. Wick to go side by side, going through House Corner as well. That is going to be relatively clean start for the midfield. That is also going to be Adam Long, already going to go side by side there with the McLaren. Now, I believe that's going to be Mayer as he tries to go free wide. He's going to try even bump Jeremy Swanson. It seems he might try to do that, but he isn't going to do it fully as we go further down as well. That's going to be Declan Brogan going side by side there, which is going to be with Tom Week as well, I believe. I can't actually see what's happening with there, but this huge pile up there is what did I expect was going to happen there, and I believe the main cause of that seemed to be, I'm not actually sure who that seemed to be. We will get a bit of a replay there, and that's going to be an interior cam as we do see this is going to be on board with Colombo now going into the first of the Corrie bends. So it does seem there's already the yellow flags ahead. It is going to be quite blind there, and they just all go down to a halt. They doesn't get hit by behind, but that's going to be a few cars off. We can see Jeremy Swanson off to the left as well, and it does seem still a few of the cars off, and that's going to be a race restart as we don't usually see race restarts, but that does mean there has been a significant accident I haven't been able to see. And once again, I am going to comment, I can't see the yellow flags from my third-party software of ACC Race Control due to an API change. We will see the formation lap once again for a race restart, and it is what we expected to happen, though, unfortunately. It is racing. You need to try to take it as clean as possible, even if it is the finale, and even if it is the most challenging track on the circuit. It's still all about racecraft here, driving safely, giving enough racing room for you and your competitors as well. We won't do another grid war because I don't think it's really necessary for it. It is going to give the drivers another attempt of being able to potentially learn it and just see how the other drivers will react going through the first few corner complexes, as we've seen. As I will actually do is just completely spectate going through obviously Corrie Bend. As I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever seen in the two seasons. I sound like I've done commentary for ages here. I've only done 2 seasons. But in the 2 seasons I've commentated here, I haven't seen a race restart, so I'm assuming it was quite a significant impact. I believe I only saw about 5 or 6 cars though, so unless I didn't see it, the rest of it, we will have to see that later. 2 minutes left now of the session start timer. We will have to see the formation lap once again, as I said. But that is all fine here. As we do wait, obviously there is a few announcements I'll make once again, as during the as it is now the finale race of season 2. After this race, all of the services or / races that PLR will provide will migrate over to SimGrids, as they have made their departure from SimRacing GP. You can see both links to this the World Tour season 3 evolution races on the second link of the pinned comment I've done, as well as the SimGrid community. Be sure to follow them. I believe boost them as well to show their support. So I believe now SimGrid will be the biggest. I believe it has been the biggest. I don't know what you call it. Registry? I guess you can call it the registry. of sim racing in a whole. So David Prowl,
20 seconds.
big up for him. Absolutely legendary GT3 driver as well.
10 seconds.
As we try attempt 2 here of the formation lap. About 4 minutes until we potentially go green once again. It's now going to be Dean Zanabovic taking pole position, as well as Arlavi and Vink, as I've said already, taking our top 3 here for tonight. Can Dean do his same sort of plan of being able to get a good reaction time and being able to take the full racing line to his advantage and try to drive off as quickly as he can, whereas Vink or Arlavi can try to pressurize each other? That is definitely going to be Dean's more favourable option here. He wants to try and make up a tiny bit of time if there is obviously the worst case scenario for himself of inheriting a tiny bit of damage, but hopefully that doesn't happen. But I'll be honest, it might happen. I have seen how he was qualifying and during practice. I'm definitely not saying he's a bad driver, I'm just saying everyone has made mistakes on this track, so now go through Forest Elbow for the second attempt here after the first race restart. We can actually see it's already becoming dusk. Well, not dusk, sorry. What's the opposite to dusk? Oh, days. Sunrise, that's it. No, my days. But it does seem to be becoming more and more light, as we can actually see the light won't be much needed and potentially an hour or so time wise in game. I believe by the time how 5 a.m. has now gone to 5:49 in about 4 minutes. I believe there is quite a high time multiplier currently activated, which is good for us because it will definitely fluctuate the track temperature, which will make it a bit more difficult for the drivers. We can see Victor doing a huge weaving strategy there to try and tee up his tires as much as he can, but that might not be the best of ideas yet as we get ready to see them formulate side by side once again. Getting ready for the start of this race, as we can see them going side by side now to try this for the second time. You see half of the grid being able to go to it side by side so far, but it might change. As we get ready to go green here, well, green part 2 here for the finale race for Bathurst of the World Tour Season 2 series here at PLR. Dean taking pole position. Can he keep it for the second time though? So we go over the start finish line. 500 more feet left to go. So we do now see them cross the line, and it's going to be a drive through, unfortunately, for Victor. That is going to be a huge detour for his position here, as we do see already Dean being able to recreate what he was supposed to do on the first time, but going further down, that is going to be Blackie going side by side with the other McLaren, I believe, of... Actually, that could be Jeremy Swanson as well as Adam Long, as we do see that's going to be a huge incident there, and I believe that is going to be... I believe that is... I'm not sure who that is. I think that was Dabrowski. Actually, who actually was that? That does seem to be a humongous incident there going further down. Blackie now going side by side, going into the Corey Bend with Adam Long. He still keeps it going into the cutting. This is where you need to make the decision who's going to back out. Doing a too wide into the cutting, it's never a good idea. It does seem they back out towards the end to try keep it safe there. Does seem they have been able to make it now, as it's now going single file once again, but that is going to be our first yellow flag going through the cutting, and that is going to be... Oh my god, this is not good here for Revrock, being the wrong way around going into the cutting, so I'm assuming he might have hit the wall. I'll have an oversteer moment as we get a replay going through the cutting here for him. Does seem... No, yeah, that is going to be Revrock just spinning, as we could just see there. That's not actually Revrock, it seems. I'm not sure who that actually is. It's the other BMW, and I believe that is going to be Fratila. Yeah, that is Fratila. Unfortunately, it does seem he has RTG there. If he is going to come back out, I'm not too sure just yet. Mike Waller all over the rear of a very, very damaged... I don't think I've ever seen such a damaged Bentley in my life. That is now the pre-facelift edition of that Bentley Continental, as it does seem he's going to be struggling quite significantly going into the first album. That you can just see practically 50% of the cars already having a significant amount of damage. It's not going to help him at all for top end speeds. He's now going to go side by side here with the Honda already being able to take probably 3/4 of his car ahead of Robert Jennings' car going into the chase now, being able to gap him on overspeed alone. As we can see once again, there's another mistake going further down. I'm not sure who that is as well. That is going to be into the chase. Actually, it still seems to be yellow flag, so I believe that actually could be a disconnect. So I can't actually see who it is or where it's coming from, so I believe it has turned out for good there, as it does seem that there's going to be Byrne going in to serve his unfortunate drive through pit stop, as well as Robert Jennings to go in to repair those damages, as well as going to be Adam Long going side by side going into the mountain straight here with what is going to be Blackick. These two drivers, very, very talented drivers going into the Corey Bends. Does seem it's going to be the advantage there for Blackick, and he was able to represent how much of a advantage he has having the inside line going into Corey Bend, already being able to gap Adam Long a tiny bit. Is where he's going to struggle a tiny bit, Adam Long, in his V12 Aston. Do see Jeremy Swanson going into pits as well. A lot of these drivers are going to be doing their mandatory pit stop at the same time to try and have a tiny bit of a chance to actually get back into the fight of this race. You can see already 4 drivers into the pits. That isn't a surprise at all, if I'm being honest. This Vic now looking to put pressure on Adam Long as well, as we can see going into McPhillibury Park. There is a yellow flag there. I'm not sure who that is potentially, as we do get onto the relative tab, and it is going to be Propeller. Unfortunately, we get a replay. It does seem, whoa, that is going to be a huge instance there. It does seem I was able to catch him up in time, but that's going to be unfortunately Propeller into the wall going into McPhillibury Park, and that is going to lose him a lot of positions. We can see him unfortunately now into the pits, as well as Dabrowski still being able to actually catch up once again for himself. So that is going to be him in up a position since we saw it last, as well as that now starting to lose battles already, which isn't good. 56 minutes left of this race so far. Going to be Victor all over the rear of Mike Waller for position. It does seem going through the chase, he has a bit of a moment there, but luckily he was able to climb his 720S Evo down and taking the inside line going through the chase. Was able to put him up into P20 now, as we do see there's going to be another white flag. I'm not sure who that is. They use a relative tab, and it's going to be Colombo, I believe. No, that's going to be... Oh, this is why I don't like this. Is it Tom Leake? I can't tell because the API's changed and I don't have the yellow flag ability now, as there was a change in position there between what is going to be Blackick, I believe it was. Is that Blackick? I can't really tell. Once again, it's going to be Christian Mayer, though, going down to P14, fortunately for himself, as well as that. Starting to settle down a tiny bit between the drivers, however, Victor all over the rear there, of Enrico Itri. It does seem Itri has quite a bit of damage there going through the cutting now. It can affect him quite a bit, so we can see there's flickering from his Ferrari 296's lights, which is going to be over 25 seconds of damage, I believe is what it is. So he is going to feel that now going through the first of the 3 parks of Reed Park. Where to see how much time he's actually losing. It doesn't seem Wicks is going to be able to have a chance of even trying to overtake going through sector 2 complex, which is definitely the better idea of not doing anything through the mountain complex. If we do see that, it's going to be yellow flag as well. So that's going to be him losing a few positions. I'm not sure who that is. We do see it is going to be him in a very vulnerable place, and that's going to be James Terry, and it's going to be even more carnage between the rest of them. And we will try to find where James Terry is. James Terry losing quite a few positions now as we get a replay, and it just seems he's spun there going through the dipping. It does seem like car didn't have a bit of luck there as well getting through. That's going to be a lot of rear damage for himself there, in a very vulnerable position, trying to he gets tapped again there, unfortunately for him, putting himself down to P23 with quite a bit of damage. Now getting closer to the 10-minute mark of this race so far. Vink now already looking to do what he doesn't want to actually be doing. He wants to be attacking Robert Alavi as quickly as he can, but these two drivers are going to be very aggressive with each other, and they won't let each other pass very easily. But this is what I predicted would happen, and it's going to be the favourable option here for Zunobovic, who is already starting to create a ton of a gap because of these two fighting so aggressively with each other going into cutting. Now 3 tabs separating both of them, as well as now Bill looking to attack now on Jeffrey Witter, a very damaged Jeffrey Witter's Ferrari 296. They go side by side going into Mountain Straight. This is where Bill will shine with the top speed of the writer. So now going through Quarry Bend, he gets the move successfully done, putting himself back into P12 there. He is one of the only cars that doesn't have damage, it seems, but going back on board with the P2 battle here, going through the dip now. Robert Alavi still being able to maintain somewhat of a gap now of 3/10. Need to try and pull as much of a gap before we go on a very, very long straight of the Conrad Straight, going through Forest Elbow now, trying to get some sort of a good exit there without hitting the wall. It does seem to get it done now between them both, getting the slipstream. It's going to be crucial here for Vink. Vink actually been quite close here to going back of the wing now, using the wing as a reference point to see how much time he actually gains under slipstream, but it doesn't seem he's actually gaining an advantage so far. I believe the elevation change isn't doing him any sort of justice so far. Going into chase now, he does seem to break a lot later than Robert Alavi and gain so much time into entrance there. It's now gone down to 2/10 instead of the 5/10 it was originally at. Do you see he's going to have the back of a tiny bit going through the Murrays. And now it does seem they are still going to be pretty much neck on neck with each other. So it's only a bit of a juke move there from Vink to try and get this position done as quickly as he can. Isn't going to work for himself, as we do see there's still quite a few people in pit, as we can see so far. Just a handful of people who have actually pitted so far from the race, and how many people have retired is a different question as well, as now using Mountain Straight to the advantage point here for Vink as he tries to do another juke move on Robert Alavi. Does a swerve, as we did see him do last lap as well. As we can see, he's now being able to create a 2.8 second gap for himself. Zunobovic to P2 and 3, which could be good for himself, but Robert Alavi being able to cope under pressure and defend, and especially with the lack of overtaking opportunities, especially through the mountainous areas, like here for example, going through the parks of Reed, Solomon and McPhillamy Park, is just going to make another disadvantage here for Vink, and it is going to be another advantage for Zunobovic, as it's just basically creating a wall for himself. Going for it, going through the skyline now. He does gain a tiny bit of braking time there, as we do see that's actually going to be Zunobovic spinning there. That is not what we expected to happen there. And that's actually going to be the worst opportunity that could happen for Zunobovic. And going through skyline, he gets it all wrong going through skyline. Luckily, he doesn't get much damage there. He lightly taps the wall, but he does have to readjust himself with a 3-pointed turn, and he does create himself with more damage. That's going to be himself down into P4 here, which is just going to make it even more interesting now for the rest of the race. Now, as this is going to be the battle for the lead, as it does seem Zunobovic is going to be beating himself up for that, as we can see now Vink doing once again a bit of a juke swerve that has been doing quite a lot recently, as he gets the inside line going into the chase. It isn't going to work, as Robert Alavi breaks a bit later than himself 10 minutes into this race now. Can he hold him off for 50 minutes, or will we see Vink get past him either by track position, well, on track, or will he use it, the track position of the mandatory pit stop to his advantage and try to get that undercut? As now we do see Christian May go in for the move, what I believe is going to be into the chase as well, as camera 1 is absolutely useless, as now Christian May all over the rear now of Thomas Week of the Ferrari 296, going through Murray's for the first time. It does seem, well, first time of this bout, it's going to be both of them losing a ton bit of time though. In terms of last lap times with each other, it does seem it's going to be in an advantage point for Christian May with a 203.3 compared to Tom Weeks 203.492. So that is definitely something to take into consideration, that Christian May is going to be faster as it stands for now, as we do see Adam Long actually starting to put a tiny bit of pressure on Bovic for position, but it does seem once again Adam not getting very lucky with the outside line going through Corey Benders. We can see now Greg Ellison's been able to catch up to Adam Long as well. We can see it's going to be Blackheath as well, so it's actually going to be about a 5-way car train here, but we will start seeing Bovic doing what Bovic does and starts to create a tiny bit of a gap for himself. But we have seen this before. 48 minutes left. Can he go up 3 positions? Either probably going to be one of the harder cars to get past because of these two battling, and there is going to be an 11-second gap actually between P3 and P2, which is another thing to take into consideration for the rest of this race now. But we do see Ivo going through Forest Elbow, whereas Dean's just going through Forest Elbow now, so there's a tiny bit of a gap, and we do see there's going to be, unfortunately, a bit of traffic there. I'm not sure if that's Itri or Colombo. I think that's Enrico Itri having to let him by, but it doesn't seem he's going to make it too easy for himself. But that is going to be him losing a tiny bit of time. Now 6 seconds between him and Zorikik. If he's able to keep up the consistent lap times that he has been able to do recently, he might be able to catch up in the next 10 minutes or so, unless Ivo is also being able to step up the gas a tiny bit now, as Christian May looks to go on the insides, going through the chase there. A bit of a risky move onto Tom Week. Tom trying to cover the inside line into the first part of the chicane of chase. It isn't going to work for himself. He's going through the Murrays. Now this is where we do see Tom Week is trying to break a tiny bit later to try save this position, but Christian May also breaks at quite a late point as well. These two drivers still in phase one of each other, being practically, again, rear on rear of each other. Having such a good slipstream advantage now. This is going to be the better slipstream straight compared to Conrod straight. This is going to be mountain straight, and it is going to be him being able to use it as an advantage of slipstream before going into Quarry Bend. Now, speaking of it, it's still going to be him too far behind to even try to think of a move. Now going through the mountainous complex is definitely going to be a place where you don't want to try even, well, think of doing a move unless a car is letting you pass. This is a part of the track where it is trying to just survive is your main priority, instead of actually spending your time obviously trying to battle with each other, as we do see this is actually happening with Vink and Robert Alavi. Vink still behind, but now this could be his opportunity to get by, going on to Conrod straight. Now it doesn't seem he's actually gaining any time, so I'm assuming that we do see Robert Alavi on a lower ring strategy setup compared to Vink, as he's not actually able to gain any time under slipstream, so that is practically a big advantage eliminated to a lower advantage point there for Vink. That's now Robert Alavi now being able to increase the gap to 3/10, even with the assists of slipstream that Vink is able to get. In terms of best lap time so far, and last lap times, yeah, practically inseparable on lap times. Wow, this is getting close between them both. Do you see it by Vink? It's going to be a 2 minutes 800 compared to, it's going to be Robert Alavi with a 2 minutes 807. So there is a 7,000th difference in terms of their last lap time. They are practically inseparable as it stands, and this could be going for a long time. They could waste the tires at quite a significant rate as well, especially Vink with his weaving technique to try and caught Alavi off guard, but at the moment it doesn't seem to work, as it does seem he's been able to work under pressure at quite a high rate so far. So far we are a quarter of the way into the race. We have seen a a few, well, a handful of people actually peeing so far. Unfortunately, we have seen 4 people retire from the race already. That is obviously what we all predicted that was going to happen, and that is just racing at the end of the day. You always have to be, well, persevering through it, and it's all about having fun at the same time. And I can understand why people would obviously retire from the race if there is literally you 10 laps down or something along the lines of that. But I do like to see when people persevere towards the end. But obviously, if you have other priorities on at the same time, it's always about weighing out what's justifiable and what isn't. And being 10 laps down with damage probably isn't a higher priority, as we do think that the sun is starting to come up, as we will start seeing the lights come off now at 6:41 a.m. in game time. Christian Mayer all over the rear now of Tom Weeks going into Forest Elbow. Again, that difficult corner, as I always mention. We already see traces of people actually locking up a tiny bit into that corner, which is going to be promising. As we do see that here's a yellow flag. I'm not sure who it's for. So we go further up the grid to see who it is. The yellow flag seems to have disappeared now, but that is going to be someone losing quite a bit of time. As now we do see Christian Mayer going side by side with Tom Weeks going into chase. He is going to go on the gravel a tiny bit. Is he going to have dirty tires? Yes, he is. Is he still able to brake? Yes, he is, but he does actually force Tom off track almost there between them both. It's just hard racing there between them both, but luckily gives the position back, and there was no major effect damage between both parties. Now, as they continue the race going into the 40th minute or so, we do see a beautiful sunrise here in Australia. Now, this is where it starts to get interesting, if they will still have the same pace between each other, or have we seen Christian Mayer knock a lot of his confidence down after the contact we've seen between them both. So Alavi's still practically inseparable with Vink, seeing as that is going to be a huge bit of well, that's going to be a lot of damage here, unfortunately, there for Vink. Huge mistake going through McPhillamy Park. That's going to be with him with at least 10 seconds or so of damage. And whoa, who is that? I believe that is Jeffrey Witt. No, it's not Jeffrey Witter. I'm not sure who that is. I believe that is Halivac, actually. Yes, that does seem to be Halivac, as we go and see what happens. As it does seem he just can't drive that car at all. That car is absolutely trash going down into the dipper. Now, unfortunately, that's going to be him returning to the garage if he continues the race. Is another whole story, and it does seem he's unfortunately disconnected from the service. That is going to be our next retirement of... Has he disconnected, though? Yeah, it does seem he has disconnected, unfortunately, for himself. It's going to be, unfortunately, what happens around Bathurst. It is just a track that is going to be very challenging. It requires a lot of skill to be able to drive. But now Robert Alavi, actually, now because of the damage that we did see Vink have towards the rear side of his Aston Martin, has, well, given Robert Alavi a tiny bit of breathing space for himself. And that's going to be now a second or so being created between them both. And that's going to be now a bad thing for Zanabovic, as he is starting to reel in the gap now, as I predicted, to Zorakic, with now the 40th minute appearing. There is a huge yellow flag happening, as I can't really see who it is. As I believe that is going to be Jeffrey Witter, actually. That is going to be Jeffrey Witter, as we get a 30-second replay of what happened. It does seem it's going to be the same thing as we did see to one of his Ferrari friends. Unfortunately, they're going through Skyline, absolutely trashing his car. We did see Zanabovic as well doing roughly the same thing, but was very lucky and only got away with just a light tap to the back of his Mercedes. And that's going to be, I believe, the next retirement of the race. It's going to be an unfortunate way to end the race for himself, that. And it does seem he's still in pit, so if he continues the race, I will be very happy to see, because it is good to see some sort of perseverance left in this race, with only 2 battles left to go so far. Christian Mayer on Tom Week for position, going through now the cutting, being able to try take the inside line through the hairpin part of the cutting, going through now Reed Park, one of the harder corners. Do you see that? It's going to be a stop slash a slow car there going through McPhillamy. It does seem that might have been just for traffic purposes. That's going to be Christian Mayer, though, going all over the curb there of McPhillamy Park. Luckily, is able to save it going through skydive now. Didn't have to improvise too much. I didn't lose too much time at all between him and Tom Week for position. This is going to be for P9. And this will be able to class to quite a few championship points so far. With now Christian Mayer all over the rear of Tom Week. As we can see, that's going to be one of the E3 Racing Ferrari 296s getting out of the way there, going into Conrad straight. He's now going into chase. It does seem Tom Week is going to be under quite immense pressure going through the first part of the chase now. Still, Christian Mayer all over the rear of that Ferrari 296. Tom Week's cars reducing. That's going to be Byrne getting out of the way. Respect him for doing that so effectively. Starts to be a bit too bad there for him. But now that's going to be Hallevac in the BMW M4. Oh, that's going to be contact there between them both. And that's going to be him and Ricardo Colombo. Unfortunately, making contact going into chase there. It's misjudged his braking zone as we get an entire onboard footage and seeing what happens here going through the first part of the chase. Then it does seem what happened there. It does seem, I think Hallevac broke a tiny bit too late. Unfortunately, just tapped the rear of Colombo's car, but Colombo is able to go into the pits now, creeping into the pits, as he does seem to have a bit of damage, unfortunately, to the front end of that Ferrari 296. Trying to get that repaired and do his mandatory pit stop at the same time is going to be crucial, as well as we actually see Vil now making a move there on Victor after Victor unfortunately losing a few positions since his crash earlier on. Getting very, very close now to the halfway stage of this race. Victor looking to go through the inside line of McPhillamy Park, but it does seem there's going to be a bit of a mistake there from him going through the exit of McPhillamy Park, just going onto the runoff area. Luckily, there is a runoff area there compared to what we have seen. It's not the best of runoff areas. There is the majority of it grass until you have the gravel trap. But this is the dangers of Bathurst, is how close the walls are to the track, and it is just the same as Monaco. You could say Long Beach as well. You could say, I'm trying to think of other, you could say Melbourne. You could say, I'm trying to think of other tracks, street circuits. Oh yeah, Baku. How can I forget that? Baku probably being the toughest calendar on, what's it called, the entire F1 calendar. If you're into F1, has the narrowest corner as well in the F1 calendar, being Castle Hill. Barely enough to go side by side there. And that's where we have seen the famous meme of Charles Leclerc saying he is stupid into the barrier. As this is just a bunch of random facts I can try and fit into my head. Now as all of this useless information is coming out that I should probably use for my English GCSE. But that is probably why I have a lot more energy, because I have now finished my, well, part of my GCSEs till June. So that is a positive. Okay, I've only got 3 in June in terms of GCSEs, but loads and loads of exams, so which is a bit annoying, but it's what happens. Well, through Kang there, it does seem there's a lot of traffic, and that just shows you how many cars are off, but are still showing a lot of potential in terms of speed. But the only battle that is going on so far is going to be Vil and Victor for position 6/10 within each other. Vil showing some pace there in the Ryder, but Victor as well showing pace in terms of their last lap times. They were quite close, but it does seem Vil actually starting to pull away from Victor, and it is going to be Vil with that 204.3, and it's going to be Victor with a 204.7, but it does seem there's a bit of a mistake made there from Vil, as well as we do see Victor doing the same mistake as he did last lap of going through McPhillamy Park, and just unfortunately just clipping the grass a tiny bit and losing a tiny bit of time. But now going through the Forest Elbow, this is where we do see now the McLaren all over the rear of him. It's a very, very crowded part of the track so far. It seems a lot of traffic, which is going to, well, play a huge factor in this position change here between these two. As well as you can see, actually, that's going to be Christian Mayer in front as well for position. Now we do see Vil trying to get past the traffic as quickly as he can, as I believe that could be Jeffrey Witter. He gets past him, as well as we do see Witter getting past. No issue, but it does seem it has been a tiny bit of a gap created between them both. And that is going to be actually Victor swerving into the pit lane now. 35 minutes left to go, so we will start seeing the pit stops of the people who have been lucky enough not to sustain a lot of damage or haven't sustained any damage at all. Now being able to get their first pit, well, their mandatory pit stops done towards the halfway point of the race. That's where we do see the most common theme of pit stops starting to be ran, trying to split the fuel 50-50, which is probably quite a good idea thinking of it. But you could also do obviously a 25 to 75 configuration. Either way of obviously start could have the lighter fuel, or the end could have the lighter fuel, and then obviously the start could have the heavier, or the end could have the heavier. All down to obviously custom preferences. That's going to be, I believe that's Blackick making a bit of a mistake there. Going into the dipper. Just seems the decompression of the suspensions caused the car to have a bit of an oversteer moment. Now back on board with Dean Zanobovic, who has been able to catch up to Ivo. I don't think Ivo had the greatest of times under traffic conditions so far. It's gone down to 9/10 now compared to the 6 seconds it was previously. With 30 minutes left to go, realistically, I'm not sure if Zanobovic is going to be able to take the win for this round unless there is something catastrophic towards Vink and Lavi, which obviously could happen. We have seen it with Dean, who was the original race leader, and we could potentially see it with the rest of the grid. It's also unpredictable. As now Dean actually starting to lose it a tiny bit. It does seem he is starting to lose time to Ivo, but in terms of last lap time, it is definitely in favour of Dean Zanobovic with his 201.915 compared to Ivo's 202.3. So there is about a 4/10 difference between them both. So that is definitely something to take into consideration. He is gaining about 4/10 per lap on him. So if that is the case, and that is the trend of rate between them two, he is going to be able to catch him in about a lap or so. Actually, no, 2 laps. If you include this one as well. Obviously, it could be an anomalous lap by both of them because it's quite hard to stay consistent around a track like Bathurst. We're edging closer and closer now to the halfway mark of this race. We do see now Dean all over the rear of Ivo for position. Going into now Murray's corner. He is going to try to go for the inside line. Can break later. He has got the inside line. Is it going to work for him? No, it does seem Ivo is going to be able to take a ridiculous amount of overspeed through the outside line and is able to maintain its position of P4 for now, but it does seem he's in P3, so we actually know we do see Vink has gone into the pit there, which has now obviously changed the order slightly. That could be Vink's attack towards Alavi to try and take the undercut to Alavi. He has to try and pit for damage there as well, so actually not sure how effective an undercut strategy can be for him. In fact, we could see Zanobovic going up into P3 actually as well because of Vink. He has came off the jacks now, and he has actually came out into P7. It does say P4 on the timing boards, but it is P7, so that is something. So he doesn't actually have that many positions again. He's actually already gone into P6, it seems. As well, no, he's still in P7, but we do see it's going to be Halivac letting the 2 cars go by, and that was very, very close to the wall there, going through the skyline there for Dean Tanabovic. All over the rear of him now, going through the dip and going into Forest Elbow now. Can he try to do it going onto Conrad Straight? As it stands, he could be close enough for that slipstream. He's 3 tenths, but we have seen this before between Vink and Alavi. It is the same, one of the same cars, since it could be the Ferrari 296, but there is a Mercedes which could, well, change slightly in terms of power, as we do see actually the slipstream is starting to take effect for himself. Going into now the first part of the chase. Is he going to brake a bit later in braking? He does seem he tries to do it. He does gain a tiny bit of time under braking, but it's not going to be enough, well, to gain a significant amount, as they are both on the limits practically, as well as actually DC Dean diving into the pit to try get an undercut on Ivo, which could actually be a smart idea, because he doesn't, well, he does have damage if he pits for the damage, so that's another reason he doesn't have the most major of damage after his incident going through Skyline, which costed him the lead of the race. So that's that Osric Major in P18 going through Forest Elbow with Ricardo Colombo. Two of these drivers in the rear engine cars, completely different manufacturers, one being a British manufacturer and one being an Italian manufacturer. Ferrari 296 and McLaren 720S Evo, both being next gen cars. We did see the Ferrari was one of the paid DLCs earlier into 2023, I believe, and then McLaren 720S Evo being a free addition to the game, which has been one of the most dominant cars since, I think it was 1.8 when it came out, as we did see it was so dominated around Spa, as majority of the grids that were hosting Spa races were McLarens, and that's why we did see the custom bops were, well, put into place, such as LFM or pit skill bops, or obviously custom bops. So we do see some of the bigger leads or the major organizations using as well, which definitely did cause diversity towards the grids. But in terms of what we do see, there is a bop on place. I'm not sure what bop it is, but that is obviously creating a more diverse server, and that's why the writer is starting to show some sort of competitivity during this championship. 27 minutes left to go. A few battles starting to creep up once again. It's going to be Blackick and Halovac. Halovac having damaged the front of his BMW M4. I'm not sure if it's desync damage. He has done his pit stop, just not sure if he has chose damage to be fixed or not, because we have seen that unfortunate graphical bug in ACC where a car has pitted for their damage, and you can tell performance wise if they have done it, but it does show, unfortunately, graphically still the car being damaged. But in this case, I believe he might still have the damage. It does seem he's struggling on pace a tiny bit with Blackick. Now, as we do see, it's going to be Blackick getting the slipstream on Halovac for position now, going through Mountain Straight. All over the rear of him. Is he going to just let him go into Quarry Bend? It does seem he's allowed him to have the inside line. I assume he's not going to fight for this. Halovac letting the position of P12 go to Blackick there, as he didn't have a chance of fighting him with the amount of damage he has sustained to the front of his BMW M4. As well as that, now that is going to be a position change. Looks like James Terry, who's had a bit of an unfortunate race during today's race, starting P15, currently down at P21, lost 6 positions so far, could make it down into 5. So he has his eyes on sight of Rev Rock. 4 positions. We do see there has been a person, has he just disconnected? I believe that was a disconnect actually, and that is going to be unfortunate there for him, as well, not for him, but it's going to be fortunate for him, unfortunate to the disconnector, as James Terry goes up into P19. It's going to be Rev Rock. That's not Rev Rock. Who is that actually? Is that Rev Rock? Yeah, no, it seems, yeah, James Terry was able to get by Rev Rock. It just didn't seem to have updated there for me. That was a bit odd. But yeah, it does seem James Terry going up into P19. It's going to be Rev Rock down into P20, as well as we do see the writer is well behind, waving the blue flags, which I never thought I would see. Because now it's going to be Declan Brogan, and it's going to be as well, I'm not sure who that is. I think that's Mayer, Christian Mayer, trying to put pressure on each other. It does seem Declan Brogan goes into P8, and that's going to be Christian Mayer going into P7, I believe, as it stands. So as that, we do see this will be Victor behind him. So this was a three-way battle originally with less than half of this race. Have to go 25 minutes to be precise. Showing no signs of slowing down between all of these drivers so far. Declan Brogan now under even more pressure than before, going through McPhillamete Park, hoping Victor can make the same mistake for himself. Now going through the skyline, the most challenging complex of corners, along with the dip and the Forest Elbow. Completed, as well as now going through Forest Elbow. Can he try and make some sort of gap for himself going into it? As now we do see that it has been a change for the lead here, as we will get back to what has happened for Robert Olavi later. Vink has been able to take P1 from Robert Olavi. That has been a change for the lead once again, so this has been quite unpredictable so far. There's quite a big gap there between P2 and P3. It seems that's unfortunately going to be, as I haven't mentioned it yet, but Robert Olavi losing his dreams of P2 as well, it seems, with a drive-through penalty he has been awarded. Has to serve it in the next 3 laps, so until the 18-minute marker, roughly, for him to serve that, which is definitely going to throw the spanners in the work for his race. But is definitely going to be a bit of a dream now for Zonobovic, and that's going to be one less car to overtake for him. Self with 18 seconds between him and the leader now. With 23 minutes left to go, I'm not sure how realistic that is going to be in terms of last laps as well. We will see. It is still Zonobovic who is able to get a better last lap. His last lap being... Actually, no, it isn't. I was looking at the best time. Sorry, it's going to be Vink with a 2 minutes .882 compared to Zonobovic's 201.992. So there's an exact second between them both. So that is definitely something to take into consideration, that he's actually losing time now compared to Vink, who seems to be on fire in today's race. Allowing not serving his drive through this lap, so he has to do it in the next 2 laps or so for it. That is going to be the end of the battles from now, and it does seem the cars are going to be closer with each other with 22 minutes left to go. Going into the teens digits left of race time with 90 minutes left to go. We do see it's going to be Dean Sonavovic and Ivo Zoricic between themselves, actually creating a bit of a battle now between themselves, as it is going to be in favor of Zoricic trying to take P3 away from the Mercedes of Dean. So it's definitely not Dean's favourite race, and I assume he hasn't actually paid for his damage. You can see spots of damage on the rear of his Mercedes, as it does seem going into lap 19 now for themselves. There's 19 minutes left to go. I thought there would be more laps, to be honest, but I forget how big of a track this actually is. As well as Seba saying Adam in 5th already. I'm just as surprised as you. I must say, if he's able to maintain P5 and potentially even P4 with the current issues that currently happen for Dean Zonobovic, he could actually potentially well take P4 if he's able to. Actually, no, I didn't see there was a 19-second gap, but it depends how intense the battle is between those two. But the P5 legend so far of Adam Long in that Aston Martin V12 in the old gen cars, as well as Vil in the other old gen car of the Writer Engineering, currently P10. Great to see for them both, as well as now we do see Ivo Zoricic now actually starting to lose time there for Dean, as it does seem Dean starts to put his pedal to the metal a tiny bit to try create a tiny bit of breathing space for themselves. Do you see now Alavi going into the pits, which will promote Dean into P2, and it will also promote Zoricic into P3 here as we go across the start finish line, as they does happen. But it does seem it's actually going to be a bit of battle there, and that's going to be a car spun there onto the entrance of Hell's Corner. And it does seem, now that's interesting, that it does seem Robert Alavi enters ahead of Dean Zonobovic and Zoricic, which I didn't expect to happen. So that is going to be an absolutely mental, well, case for him. That's now going to be a three-way battle. We're going to have to see if Robert Alavi can actually handle the pressure for the rest of the race, which is 17 minutes. Still quite a lot. So saying it's not the James Bond car. Was it the DB9? It depends which James Bond's movie you're thinking of. Because I think Live and Let Die was the... I think that was the DB9. I'm going to have to use my smooth brain. So yeah, there was one with the V12 Vantage. That is a fact. So yeah, you can say it is. But the DB5 is the very popular car. Obviously, being, I think it's the, I think it's been in, it's called, I think it's in Goldfinger. I genuinely can't remember either. I don't watch that many films. Generally, I just do not have the attention span to watch films. That's why I think TikTok and YouTube are such powerful social media tools now. Imagine a DB5 as a GT3 car. You'll never see that. DB5 had some cooler features. Yeah, it definitely did. So, if you want to declare war on a track, that is, yeah. Could be useful in ACC. For 21 Monza, yes, I can agree with you for that, as we do turn that. That's going to be a huge mistake there from Dean Zonobovic, which has now caused him to have to try hug the inside line going into Hell's Corner. It's now going to be side by side between him and Zoricic for position going into turn 1 known as Hell's Corner, and it's going to be still side by side going into the mountain straight. It's going to be pushed off track a tiny bit. That's going to lose a lot of momentum there for Zoricic. He has to get onto the grass a tiny bit there, and that's now going to be Dean back and able to maintain P3, and now still Zoricic into P4. He tries again for a little bit of a juke move going into Corey Bend. Isn't going to work for himself yet, as we can actually see Robert Alavi starting to create a bit of a breathing space for himself, with now a 2-second gap between him and P2. So that is definitely a favour for Robert, to say the least, as we can see that's going to be Zoricic hitting the wall a tiny bit going through the cutting. That will definitely show a scientific effect of consistency there, especially for the Ferrari, which is such an aero-reliant car, as we can actually see it's already starting to take a bit of an impact there as he almost hits the wall going through. I believe that's Reed, no, that's Solomon Park, and then going through McPhillamy Park. Now, it's very confusing where there's 3 parks, to say the least. But that's one thing I do really love about Bathurst. Bathurst is one of my favourite tracks, to say the least. This is Zoricic, that's not Zoricic, so that's going to be Dean. having a bit of a moment there going through dip, going into Forest Elbow now. Has a bit of a light tap on the wall. As you can see, there is signs of a crash that Dean could have had earlier, with the front of his bumper seeming to be quite battered after his attempt of a 3-point turn that you can see earlier into the stream, which definitely caused him more harm than good. Now, obviously, with the issue that we did just see Zara Kick have of him hitting the wall slightly on such an aero-reliant car like the Ferrari, will definitely show such a big impact on his race pace. Now, as we can see, a second has been created between him and Zunobovic, as we do see as well going down on board with Victor. Is going to be him still being able to catch up with it, but still needs to think about if he can try to catch up at, well, any given moment, but it doesn't seem he's going to be able to. With only 30 minutes left to go between the two, Christian Mayer still having the favour of the last lap, it seems. No, it doesn't. It's going to be Victor having the fast... No. Yeah, Victor having the fastest lap with a 202.097, and then Christian Mayer with 202.385. That is something to take into consideration, that he is actually still gaining onto Christian. As to Daniele Paris in chat, welcome on in, as you have joined us on the finale race here at PLR. Now still all over the rear of Christian Mayer. It's gone down to 4 tenths now, being able to just shave off tenths going through the first few corners of the mountain. Now going through Raid Park and then Solomon Park. Again, one of the pieces of the track where you have to take the identical line, otherwise you will go into the wall. But you can see how little forgiveness there is. Well, practically every part of Bathurst, thinking of it, it's just all walls. Oh, and that's actually going to be a huge crash there. That's going to be Christian Mayer going into the wall. And we have seen that so many times, unfortunately, as we go into the skyline with him, as it does seem going through now at the skyline. It does seem he just gets a bit loose over the bump, unfortunately. And it does seem losing the control of the car and having a bit of an understeer moment into the first wall of the skyline. And then bumping into the second of the exit, going into the dipper. And there's going to be a lot of damage to the front of Christian Mayer's McLaren 720S with only 12 minutes left to go. Will he continue? Because he does have now only a 6-second gap between him and P9 of Declan Brogan in the CrowdStrike Racing Lamborghini. So that is going to be a bit of an issue for him. He is losing about 2 tenths per corner so far. That's just tells you again how much of an aero-reliant car that McLaren 720S currently is and will always be, especially with the Evo having those new aero adjustments, mainly known to be seen on the front of those aero ducts that you can see on, well, under both headlights there. The aero trims in real life will be so fragile, and if they are obviously removed from an incident, it will just basically cause it to be a natural 720S Evo. Well, no, just a natural McLaren 720S, sorry. And that's practically the reason the 720S Evo was made, due to some new aero features which made it so powerful. Now this is where it starts to get a bit rowdy between the two teammates of the E3 Racing Ferrari 296. Now it does seem Ricardo Colombo trying to get past Enrico Itchy for position, as well as we do see Anthony Fox as well behind, going through now Raid Park and Solomon Park. Can we get some McPhillamy Park now? Loads of parks into this part of the track, as we can see Anthony Fox going for a tiny bit of an improvised line, it does seem, but is able to keep on track there. As we do also see that it's going to be Christian Mayer, I believe, getting involved with this, but that is going to be a blue flag to say the least. Well, now Ricardo Colombo being able to get the overspeed with the slipstream going on to Conrod straight there, taking his position up into P16 as we do see his teammate now under pressure. Enrico Itri under a bit of pressure from what is going to be Anthony Fox in the Porsche 992. He does a very, very dangerous for himself Duke move going into the final corner of Murray's Corner. The two 90-degree corners are located as the final and the first corner, obviously the finale one being Murray's Corner, and then the first one being known as House Corner. Two of the definitely the most boring corners, but also can be quite tricky as well. But obviously you need some sort of rest corners during the tracks as well, because it can be quite intense having all of those track corners at the same time, and it just makes you feel for the actual GT drivers who races in real life. Basically, them being professional drivers, you will still see crashes. We have seen it, especially in the last Bathurst 20, not Bathurst 24. That's sim racing only, luckily. Actually, not lucky. I'd love to see Bathurst 24 in real life, but that is obviously too dangerous. And obviously, with it being applied as a street circuit, it does affect the town. I forgot of the town of Bathurst itself as well. Alright, this is more obviously another community question, but there's there's three top priority bucket list items in terms of motorsports I want to see now, because I've been able to tick off Spa 24, which I'm very lucky to say. But the other three would be Nords, Daytona, and Bathurst. But in order, ranking them 1 to 3, which one being the one you want to see the most, and 3, obviously you still want to see it, but what the third being like the least prioritized one. What ones would you say? Because I probably would say Daytona. I don't know. It's actually so hard thinking of it, but I would say, yeah, Daytona, Norge for Life, Bathurst. Bathurst still being one of my favorite tracks. But obviously Norge for Life being such an immense track, as well as Daytona just having such a, well, just, it's obviously such a magical race, the Daytona 24 Hours by IMSA. And I still respect IMSA so much for keeping their races under free to watch basis. But I was actually speaking to one of my friends who is a marketing agent for I'm not sure who he actually works for, so I'm not going to say because I don't want to be twisting my words with it. But he says it's actually quite a smart idea with it, because obviously we saw, unfortunately, Formula E. If you watch Formula E like me, it's now a turn to pay sites now, such as I believe it's Fox Sport if you're in America, but which is unfortunate for us, because I used to watch it on YouTube because it was free, and it actually has quite a mature audience compared to F1, which that's the one thing I start to dislike about F1, is obviously it's starting to try to be a bit more inclusive with everyone instead of just focusing on the racing itself. But as well as that, we do see that I forgot what I was talking about now. Oh no. Yeah, IMSA being just still free to watch is mainly, actually they're still gaining quite a bit of money from it, because having like a mass amount of people watching because it's free. So we see Anthony Fox is going to go and take a huge track cut, wanting that going through the skyline to save his cut. But having the free to watch method of IMSA through their YouTube channel actually attracts a bigger audience, which attracts bigger sponsors because more impressions, obviously, which I thought is really smart thinking of it. And that's why they're making more money than they probably would be by doing their pay-per-view. Seba saying, I've never heard of kangaroos problematic. I've heard that kangaroos are problematic during the race. Or why did that take me so long to say? I don't know if the problem is still relevant. Well, obviously, being in Australia, I think it is definitely that. It's their national mascot, I guess you could say. I think it is still an issue, because we have seen it. I believe it was on the Bathurst 20. I keep saying 24. 12 hours. This year, yeah, February. We did see. Was it February or November? I can't remember now. But that was quite a huge issue. Those baby kangaroos just going on to the track, and that's why we did see quite a few yellow flags during it. And that is one thing of being in such a remote area like Australia, where There is so much, you could say, dangerous species as well, because for places like UK, the most you'll see is a wild boar, and you won't see that anywhere near the racetracks like Silverstone, for example, or Donington, because the only places you'll actually see it is actually near me. I live in Wales, where I live in such an awful place when it comes to racetrack. I'm an average of 3 hours away from anything, and oh my god, that was Anthony Fox. That's definitely going to have to be a change of pants there for himself. But that's going to be Anthony Fox getting the complete outside line, going into the cutting, as we get a replay there. Gets a huge understeer moment and just manages to take it without hitting any of the walls there. Very, very good job there from Anthony Fox. We go on to the last 10 minutes, I believe, of this race, as it is going to be. So, 4 minutes after this race. Well, this race is absolutely flown by. This is now Eric Magiro as well. Yeah, I know. But I love living from Wales. It's a great place. As well as that, to be honest, my local track is 5 minutes away from me, but it's not a discontinued track, but there are no sort of motorsports. They're due to obviously noise regulation, stuff like that. So it isn't a shame. It is a shame, and I would have definitely like sponsored it or something. I don't have that kind of money though. But if I were to obviously sponsor it, the money I definitely would. But it's now going to be Vil going up into P9 as well. So Vil actually making quite good progress during this race as well as Eric Magiro with it. The nearest decent scale track for me is what do you I can't say Poznan. Only 2 hours away from me. Only 2 hours. Oh my days. Poznan. That sounds Polish. Am I wrong or am I right? Or Poznan. Sounds quite Dutch though. It sounds. Is it European? Oh my days. Polish. I thought so. Oh, look at me go. Anthony Fox there. So we should probably get back onto the racing. There's only 2 minutes left. This is going to be the final. Well, no, depending on the leader is, this could be the penultimate lap of the race now. As Anthony Fox going through the cutting, potentially for one of the final times now. Is going to be all over the rear of Ricardo Colombo. Now going through Road Park. Polish track, the only relevant one at least. I think the thing with being in Europe though, Central Europe, is you have access to all of the other tracks as well. Compared to being on an island for the UK, for reference. Even though we have like really lovely tracks like Donington that I'm going to on the weekend. You have obviously all of the major tracks being on the European continent itself, and knowing Poland, they're actually, yeah, you're in quite a bad spot for it, but you are not that far of a drive from Germany, or are you? But yeah, you have probably access to like Norwich flight. You could potentially go to Italy, but we could also do the same. But what I find annoying though and irritating is when we were going to Belgium for Spa last year, is most of the driving we did was in the UK, because we live in such a awkward position. Is we're basically on the complete opposite side to the Eurotunnel. The Eurotunnel being like focused in Folkestone and Dover, so it's about 4 hours that way, and then it's, I think 2.5, 3 on European roads, and the European roads are absolutely lovely, especially going through Dunkirk and stuff like that, as we got to do a historic route as well. We went through Dunkirk all the way up to Belgium, so it looked lovely instead of going on the motorways for part of it, even though we did go on a closed motorway for half an hour, which was something interesting to say the least. But that's a different story. I've actually told this all on the podcast as well, so I will link that podcast later if people wanted to see that. So I haven't done a podcast in ages, but I don't think I'll do another one because I will just chat too much. For example, Kubica had to live in Italy. Oh my days, I can't read that any class. For example, Kubica had to live in Italy in order to keep up with his early career. Yeah, I think that's a shame with the same with a lot of drivers like Oscar Piastri, for example. Obviously, he was located in Australia, but had to move to the UK for work purposes. I watched a podcast where his dad and him moved to the UK for obviously motorsport purposes, but then his dad moved back 2 years later when he turned 18, and now obviously he's still living in the UK because he's working with McLaren compared to him now living in Australia. But that is just unfortunately what happens with it. Do you see that's a huge lunge there from Eric Magiro going on to the final lap? Oh, beautiful. It's still going to be going on there, but he does unfortunately go onto the gravel and the grass there, and that's going to lose him a lot of momentum. That's going to keep Vil the position for now. That's a second chance for Vil to actually try to defend his position again. Going on to the final lap of the race for himself. So we do see Vink going through now as we go on board with Vink. Going into the forest elbow, that's going to be a lot of damage there for the front of Vink. I'm not sure what's happened there as he gets more damage going through the final corner of Forest Elbow. Going on to Conrad Straight now. It does seem he might have a tiny bit of suspension damage. Yeah, he does seem to be holding the angle about 25 degrees each side there. So yeah, you can also hear a tiny bit of a scooching of the tyres. And that is going to be a pat on the back here for Vink, who has been able to drive absolutely outstandingly. Oh my days, I need to stop speaking, man. I need to stop speaking. Every time I compliment something, someone's driving, they always tend to go off there. But Vink driving absolutely outstandingly, going through into the final round, being able to take the win here at Bathurst for the World Tour Season 2. And that will be the end of the season, as we do now see Arlavi taking P2, very close between them both. Arlavi holding up a great fight with Vink. Pat on the back with him is Zanobovic winning the championship as well. Very, very well done for him winning the championship. Very, very much deserved for himself. As well as Adam Long in that Aston Martin V12 taking P4, which I am honestly stunned about, and I think Seba will also be quite shocked about him being up into P4 as he was in P5 the last time we checked. It does seem there was a position change later into the race, and that is going to be Adam in P4, Greg Ellis in P5, Victor in P6 in the McLaren 720S Evo, as well as now a bit of a gap there. It's going to be Declan Brogan going through Chase to potentially take P7. As Vink's now driving the Mustang. I don't like the Mustang. I don't know why. It just feels very, very understeery for me. Obviously, you can change that set of preferences, but you usually get your first impression with a car when driving it for the first time. This one's now Vil going across the line for P8, as well as now Magiro taking the line in P9, as well as Christian Mayer. Has Christian Mayer run out of fuel? I think Christian Mayer has run out of fuel. Has he run out of fuel? Has he run out of fuel? I think he's having to lift and coast. Oh, this is absolute crazy. Well, has he? You can hear that the engine's still running and he's putting his throttle down, so I'm assuming he's having to fuel save with probably less than a litre of fuel left to go. So I think he's having to use gravity to try and take the hit here to try and go through the last part of the Conrad Straight. This could potentially, and it has left now Blackgate taking P10 here away from Christian Mayer. It's actually, will he be able to keep it there? Going through it, so now we do see it going through Murray's for the final time for Blackgate. He takes the checkered line to take P10. Quite lucky there, as we do see, unfortunately, Christian Mayer seems to be having some sort of technical issues. As what is happening now with himself? Is it a damage thing? Oh, can we see someone do some sort of very, very... Oh, what a legend. We do see now there's going to be Revrock pushing him towards the end here. Any harder of a push? We do see now this is going to be absolutely wonderful sight. He's going to push him along the ends, and I so highly respect Revrock for doing this, as he's now going to finish the race for himself, provisionally in P11. Yeah, I'm not sure what's happened to him. I'm assuming he has run out of fuel, but it does seem he had symptoms of having fuel, so I'm not sure what's happened. If it's well, we'll find out if it's a hardware issue now. It doesn't seem to be a hardware issue. Or is it a hardware issue? As that is the best thing I've seen all season, as that's going to be Christian Mayer taking the flag for the final time of the season. And that is going to be rounding up the season here, as it definitely has been one of the better seasons, to say the least. It has just been one of the seasons you do see quite a bit of magic happening, and it has been one of the seasons that have showed a lot of what's the word? A lot of action, to say the least, as we go with the replay now throughout the race. It doesn't seem to be showing. Oh my days, there's a bat right outside my window. That scared me. But this isn't going to be the full race replay, obviously, but this could just be Vil for now, as I can't change any of the drivers, it seems. There's going to be unfortunate there for... Actually, oh, yes, I can. Oh, I can use all of my fancy tools. That is going to be the race replay for that, but this is going to be the end of Season 2 of the entire of the season. Obviously, I have said it before about 2 times or so, but if you check the pin message on the YouTube comment section, you can see now we have migrated to SimGrid for the rest of Season 3, when Season 3 does take place in 3 weeks, I believe Greg Ellis said. Obviously, the eval rounds being taken place first. You can see that on the second link on the SimGrid, but you need to follow the SimGrid to actually be able to register for it, to be able to drop them a follow on the new SimGrid, as that will be where all of the events will take place to avoid confusion there, as I was hitting the wall earlier on. But that is going to be the end of the commentary here for tonight's race. Thank you very, very much, Seba, and I believe there was a few others who joined in. Seba, Brandy Leg, Igor, I think is how you said it as well. And obviously Greg, who joined earlier on as well. Thank you all for joining me in the comments here today. I have been a commentator, Aces, also known as Alex. I am, well, originally a freelancer commentator. I do commentating for various leagues, and there are a very, very big announcement that I have coming that I'm not allowed to share just yet. But I will see you guys for potentially next season. I'm not sure what's happening yet, but if I don't see you then, have a great rest of your evening, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.